In the bustling city of Ikotu, there lived a wealthy man named Orji. Orji was known far and wide as a generous businessman, skilled in the ways of trade and blessed with wisdom. He imports car spare parts and has several shops and warehouses all over the country. His success was complemented by his beautiful wife Nkem, whose kindness and beauty were celebrated by friends and foes alike. Theirs was a marriage built on love, respect, and mutual understanding, and they shared their wealth generously with the people around them. Nkem is a graduate of mass communication from a prestigious university, but she never got to work after school, as she married Orji, who referred to her as Oriako, and never allowed her to work. She, however, assisted him in handling the intellectual part of the family business, like attending to investors' meals and checking in on their business partners. Orji is a good man, and Nkem never lacked anything. One fateful evening, as Orji was returning home from a busy day in his business, he saw a man slouched against the wall of a market stall, his clothes tattered, his face worn and hollow. As he approached, Orji was stunned to recognize the man as his old university friend Ikemba. They had been very close friends during their university days, until Ikemba joined some other boys to travel to Europe by sea. And so he never heard from him again. Orji was astonished to see Ikemba in that despicable state and wondered what must have happened to him, ending up a beggar on the streets. Orji couldn't bear the sight of his friend being mocked and ridiculed by passerbys. His heart filled with compassion, he got down from his car and walked up to Ikemba. His eyes widened in shock as he saw Orji, his longtime friend. Orji embraced Ikemba and took him home. Nkem was shocked when she saw a strange man walking into their house with her husband. Cold chills ran down her body as she sighted Ikemba. Her husband introduced her to his long-lost friend and asked her to accommodate him for a week while he tries to fix him up somewhere. Nkem felt uneasy, but she thought it would be rude of her to not accommodate her husband's poor friend. And so she brushed off her uneasiness and proceeded to welcome Ikemba, providing him with food, clothing, and a room to stay. Orji decided to bring Ikemba into his business, hoping to give him a fresh start. He was excited to help his friend. But his wife Nkem was not very comfortable with Ikemba. She noticed Ikemba's eyes, which seemed to carry an unsettling darkness. Her heart warned her that Ikemba's intentions were not pure. But when she tried to voice out her concerns to her husband Orji, he simply laughed and reassured her. "My love," he said, "Ikemba is a friend. He has simply fallen on hard times, and it is my duty to lift him up. Trust me." Reluctantly, Nkem let her concerns go yet again, though a nagging feeling remained in her heart. In the months that followed, Ikemba proved himself to be a diligent worker, or so it seemed. He was always there, handling business deals with Orji, learning the secret of the trade, and gaining Orji's trust bit by bit. Orji was impressed by how fast Ikemba, his friend, was grasping the trade tactics, and so he entrusted more important responsibilities to him. In less than a year, Ikemba was already communicating directly with Orji's foreign counterparts. He was handling the importation and logistics of the business. He seemed very humble and kind. He was always smiling with his teeth and seemed playful too. Yet in private, Ikemba's heart was filled with greed. He coveted Orji's wealth, his success, and even his beautiful wife Nkem. As he witnessed Orji's fortune grow, his desire to take it all for himself became an obsession. 2 years passed, and Orji's trust in Ikemba only grew. He entrusted him with greater responsibilities and even shared parts of the business with him. Ikemba, however, was no friend at heart. Underneath his charming smile and dutiful demeanor, he harbored a sinister plan to eliminate Orji and take over his wealth. One dreadful evening, after a long day, Ikemba lured Orji out to go eat nkwobi and isiewu. That is one of Orji's best delicacies, and he found the gesture rare and endearing. He ate heartily, unaware that Ikemba had laced his food with a deadly poison. Orji had asked his driver to go home, since he was out late with his friend Ikemba, and so he was going to be driving himself back. On his way home that night, the poison kicked in. He started sweating profusely. His muscles became weak and his eyes blurry. Orji lost consciousness and his car collided with a trailer parked by the side of the road. He gave up the ghost at the spot. Nkem had felt a dark cloud hovering around her that evening. But she prayed silently, brushed it off, and continued preparing dinner for her husband. Few minutes later, she heard a knock on the door. She was confused because her husband has the key to the entrance. And so who could be knocking? She thought. Nkem opened the door. Lo and behold, her husband Orji was standing at the door. "My love, why didn't you use your key instead? And where is your car and your bag?" she asked as her eyes scouted the compound, searching for his car. "My car broke down by the roadside. They are fixing it," Orji replied as he walked into the house. He sat on the dining table and asked for his food. Nkem served his food and he started eating. Something seems amiss as Nkem observed as her husband ate quietly. He was not his usual self. He would always chat with her and crack jokes during dinner. But something was different today. After dinner, Nkem cleared the table and decided to confront her husband on why he was acting strangely and unusually quiet. "My love, did something happen at work? You are awfully quiet, unlike you. Talk to me, your wife," Nkem asked calmly. Orji smiled at her as tears welled up in his eyes. "My wife, let me go and bring something I kept outside. I will tell you all about it," he said as he walked out. Nkem waited for a while, and as she stood up to go and check what was taking so long, her phone rang. Nkem got the most shocking and heart-wrenching news of her life. "What do you mean my husband is dead? He is home now," she screamed as she ran outside their compound searching for her husband. "I'm sorry, ma. He died in an accident 2 hours ago," the caller said. It felt like a dream. Nkem called out for her husband, but nobody answered. She ran round the compound, ran upstairs, but she saw no one. Cold chills ran down her spine as she collapsed on the floor. Have I been speaking to a ghost? Did I just dine with a ghost? She cried bitterly, calling out her husband's name, feeling as if her world had come crashing down. With Orji gone, Ikemba quickly moved in to take control of the business. Nkem's suspicion grew stronger, and she was tormented by the thought that her husband's death had been no accident. But with her beloved gone, she felt powerless, alone, and unsure of how to proceed. One evening, as Nkem sat alone in her room, her grief weighing heavily on her, she heard a soft whisper in the air. She looked around, her heart racing, when suddenly she saw a faint glowing figure standing before her. It was Orji's ghost. "Nkem, my love," he spoke gently, his voice like a breeze, carrying the scent of their fondest memories. Nkem gasped, both terrified and overjoyed. She could barely believe her eyes. "Orji, is this truly you?" "My love, Ikemba betrayed me. You should request for an autopsy and then go into Ikemba's room and you will find proof." The figure vanished with an echo, and Nkem jumped out of her chair, rubbing her eyes frantically to be sure she truly saw what she saw. Nkem's heart sank as she thought of the possibility that Ikemba had murdered her husband, and she was determined to uncover the truth. Nkem called the hospital to request for an autopsy, and after a week, she got a heart-wrenching call from the hospital that indeed there is poison in the system of her late husband. Nkem cried her heart out and vowed to expose Ikemba and get justice for her husband. The next week, Nkem called Ikemba and asked to visit him. "Ikemba, I am so lonely this period. Can I come over to yours one of these days?" she asked him over the phone. Ikemba was ecstatic. "So you mean I will take over Orji's money, his business, and now his wife?" "Yes!" he screamed happily. "Oh, my dear, you can come around tomorrow. I will have my chef prepare a feast for you," Ikemba replied excitedly. Nkem expressed her gratitude and hung up the call. She was certain Ikemba would fall for her tactics, as he is desperate to covet everything her kind husband owned. The next day, Nkem dressed up in one of her ravishing dresses, applied the most alluring perfume, and headed to Ikemba's house, her heart set on revenge. When she arrived, Ikemba had prepared a feast in his living room. He couldn't take his lustful eyes off Nkem, and she exploited every bit of it. She would stroke her hair, make eye contact with him, in an endeavor to trap him completely in her charm. All she needed to do was to get an opportunity to be alone in Ikemba's room so that she can find evidence of the poison he used on her husband. As they ate and she flirted consciously with him, Nkem spilled her glass of wine all over her dress. Ikemba immediately asked her to go up to his room and change into one of his shirts and shorts. And that was her chance. Nkem went up to Ikemba's room. She locked herself in and started looking. She frantically searched through the wardrobes, the drawers, the bags, until she saw a small suitcase that looks like her husband's suitcase, buried in between his shoe rack. Nkem hurriedly opened the case, and lo and behold, there was a small black bottle in it. She immediately stashed it away in her purse and went back down. She lied to Ikemba that her period also just started, and so she needs to leave, but she will visit him next weekend. She gave him a kiss on the mouth to ensure he won't be suspicious of her as she left. Ikemba was overjoyed and promised to check up on her. Nkem took the bottle straight to the hospital to confirm if the content is the same as what was found on her husband, Orji. By morning, Nkem woke up to her phone ringing. The hospital confirmed to her that the same poison in the bottle is the same as what was found during the autopsy. Nkem called the police immediately and presented the evidence and hospital reports to them. She accompanied the police to Ikemba's house to witness the arrest. Ikemba was arrested, and words spread like wildfire in the town about how Ikemba killed his friend that helped him out of the trenches out of envy. People murmured and whispered from every angle, reminding themselves to be careful of who they lend a helping hand to. In 1 month's time, with tears in her eyes, Nkem buried her husband, feeling both sorrow and peace for getting him justice. From that day on, she ruled the business with a steady hand and a generous heart, honoring Orji's legacy and carrying forward the love they had shared. This is the end of my story.